Hello and welcome to the second part. Today we're going to be working on consumer credit. That is section 13.2. So let's begin by talking about what are we going to be looking at in this section. We are going to be identifying the three types of consumer credit. We're going to determine interest payments and costs for installment loans. We're going to be also determining account balances and finance charges for revolving loans. So let's talk about the consumer credit. So installment buying, when you have consumer credit, takes form of loans extended to people who borrow money to finance the purchase of cars, furniture, appliances, jewelry, electronics, and other items. So in this section, we will discuss two common types of consumer credit. So let's look at that. So the first one is called an installment loan or a closed-end credit. It involves a borrowing set an amount up front and paying a series of equal installment until the loan is paid off. So one example would be that used in finance would be the purchase of cars, furniture, and appliances, or where you, for example, you create an installment plan for your iPhone. So let's say you got just your phone, you know you're going to be paying $1,500 or $1,800, whatever it might be. And you know your monthly payments will be in equal sizes and an equal amount for 24 months. And that is an example of an installment loan. A revolving loan is the second type. A revolving loan involves borrowing up to a credit limit with no fixed number of payments. The consumer continues paying until no balance is owed. Additional credit is often extended as long as the limit has not been exceeded before the initial amount is paid off. So for example, if let's say you have a credit card with a balance of $5,000 and that's reusable, right? So if you keep using it and you don't spend the whole 5,000, let's say by the end of the month, you paid off your 5,000. By the end of the next year, you're instead of having 5,000, it's going to be now. So when we were discussing revolving loans, it's more about like a credit card where you kind of pay it off once you start borrowing money, but then you can start from scratch. And then let's say that you pay it off, then the amount of money that we'll borrow is more than $5,000, let's say $10,000. So your credit limit can increase if you have a good credit. So those two we talked about, revolving loans and installment loans. So those are the two types of consumer credit. Now, there's also add-on credit. Installment loans set up in order for closed-end credits are often called and based on add-on credit. This means that the amount P is borrowed, the annual interest rate of R, and the payments will extend over 2 years. And then the required interest becomes the formula that we know and love, I equal PRT. Now, to find the future of a simple interest loan and divided by the payments over the T years. So let's look at this example. So Zach buys $2,800 worth of furniture. He pays $400 down and he agrees to pay a balance of 6% add-on interest for the next 2 years. So find how much money he had to repay and the monthly payment. So the amount he has to repay is the future amount. So we know how to calculate the future amount. And we know that's going to be the principal amount. So P is 2,800 minus the $400 that he put in there. So P is 2,400. 1 plus the rate. So remember the rate is 0.06 and T, the years, is 2 years. So at the end of the day, Zach will repay $2,688. And this is how much he has to repay. Now we have to find the monthly payment. Well, the monthly payment, we will take how much divided by 24. Why 24? And you're going to say, what's 2,688 divided by 12? That would be for 1 year. You are using it for 2 years. So 2 years is equivalent to 24 months. So there is a total of 24 payments. So you're going to use the amount paid over 24 months because there's 24 months in 2 years, not just 1 year. So you need to be careful. You're using it for 2 years, so it's going to be 2,688 over 24 months. And that is $112 per month for 24 months. So he's going to have an installment plan for that furniture for 24 months, given that his principal was 2,400. Now, revolving loans is with a typical open-ended credit account. A credit limit is established initially for the consumer can make purchases within a month. Up credit limit. So at the end of each billing cycle, you will have this itemized billing, which is a statement of listing all the purchases that you create. And there's also like when you have, like, let's say you have Visa or one bank that gives you like cash rewards for every amount of money you buy in food or gas, you get like cash back. So things of that nature, and that requires a minimum payment. So let's say you have a $5,000 credit card, but you just spent $2,000. Well, there should exist a minimum payment that's around maybe 10 or 15% of the card. So you would have to pay a minimum of $200, $300, depending how much you owe on the card. Now, revolving loans, any charges beyond cash events and cash prices items are called finance charges. So finance charges may include interest and annual fee, credit insurance coverage, and payment differentials or carrying charges. So for example, when you have a revolving loan, and let's say that your credit card, you have a credit card with $5,000 limit, and you owe already $2,000 to that. You still have $3,000 left, but there's gonna be an interest on those $2,000 that you owe, because let's say on the month you only gave $300 out of those $2,000 because you haven't finished paying. You're gonna have carry-on charges because you haven't paid the full 2,000. So every time you're gonna get billed interest. So finance charge average daily balance method. So most open-ended lenders use a method called calculating finance charges, the average daily balance method. So it considers balance on all days of the billing period and comes closer to charging cardholder for the credit they actually utilize. So they're going to charge up to how much you spent on that day. So it's not what you've used for the few hours, but it's the accumulation. So that is the average daily balance method. So banks, for example, they have, or lenders, they are going to look at all of your expenses and all of the charges on your bills. Let's look at this example. The activity on a credit card for one billing period is given. And if the previous balance was $320.75, and the bank charges $1.4% per month, an average daily balance, find the average daily balance by the next billing cycle, April 3rd, and the finance charge for April 3rd billing. So let's look at the we know that March 3rd was the billing date, and we know that the previous balance was $320.75. This was the previous balance. And we know that on March 12th, there was a payment of $250. Then you spent a card repair, so you spent money, $422. On March, you spent on food $124. On April, you spent $64.32. So we know that you left a balance of $320.75, but then you subtract your payment of $250, but then you added 422.85, and then you added 124.80, and then you added your 64.32. That's how much you spent. So if we punch this on the calculator, so let me do 320.75 minus $250 plus 422, plus 422.85 plus $124.80 plus $64.32. This is a total of $682.72. And they're saying that the bank charges 1.4 per month. So you're going to have 682.72 times one. So if I'm going to multiply by 1.4%, it's 0.014. So I'm going to multiply the value of 682.72, that value times my 0.014, that's going to give me 9.55. So that's just the interest. So it's going to be 682.72 plus 9.55. So this plus my 682.72, that should be $692.28 roughly. So there it is. So we have 682.72. That's without the interest. So this would be without the 1.4%. Because if we add the 1.4%, then this would be increased. So then it's just like running a checkbook. Now take the number of days of the balance times the balance. So take the number of days. So there's the days of the balance. So we would say the balance per day. So they're asking us to multiply the balance times the days of the balance. So the days times the actual balance. So they're asking us to multiply 9 times the balance, 5 times the balance, 3 times the balance, 12 times the balance, 2 times the balance. So when we do 9 times the balance, there's a product. 5 times 70.5, there's a product. There's a product, there's a product, and there's a product. So this is how we calculate the average day balance. We take the number of days times the balance. There's a product, the day times the balance, there's the product, and we get our table. So to find the sum of daily balance, we need to add the last column. So the daily balance, we're going to add all of this column. When we add this column, so you're going to use your calculator and do 288.6.75 plus 353.75 plus 1480.80 plus 7420.80 plus 1365.44. When you add those values, you're going to get 13,507.54. So you're going to sum the daily balances over the days in the billing. So the billing, if it's the month of October or days that have 31 days, you divide it by 31, and you're going to get $435. So 435.73, that's your average daily balance. But we know that the bank charges or the lender charges your 1.4%. So that converts into 0.014 times your daily balance, your average daily. So that's going to give you a total of $6.10. And that gives you the average daily balance. And that terminates the section. So please make sure to review once we have the balance, finding the product. Adding the product will give you the sum of the daily, but that doesn't give you the average daily. You have to do the sum divided by your billing period. So in this case, we're using 31 because it can be at most 31 days. And with that, we finish lecture 13.2. Thank you, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.